1 year ago, I had literally 3 likes on every single one of my LinkedIn posts. And I tried posting sporadically here or there, but I didn't see much results. And after learning what I learned over the last year or so, I went to getting up to 100,000 impressions per month. And this is just a quick screenshot showing the impressions, the follow accounts, the profile views, and some of the engagements that I've been getting over the last few months. Now, the idea behind this video is simple. I have a couple of my colleagues that are starting posting on LinkedIn very soon. Hopefully, no pressure there. So I thought I might as well record this video for them and also use this to just put that on my tiny little YouTube channel. So here we are. Let's just walk you through the first 10 steps that I think you should be taking in order to start posting consistently on LinkedIn, in order to drive up your impressions up to 50,000 views per month without having to sacrifice too much time to all of this. And just for some context, I took this screenshot about 2-3 months ago when I had 10,000 followers or connections, whatever. Now I'm up to 15,000. And that's just through posting a bunch of videos, a bunch of stories about me running my agency and that kind of thing. So essentially, let's walk you through the 10 steps, and I'll just try to go in depth into the steps that are important, skipping some of the more boring, the more common sense steps that I'm sure you would have thought of before. So the first thing I can't stress enough is before you start posting, you need to polish off your LinkedIn profile. Don't just crop a random photo that you took 2 years ago on a night out and put that as your professional profile photo. Go to a local photography studio or whatever, spend $20 on it, get a nice headshot, and I guarantee you it will attract a lot more people to your profile. And I can tell you that for a fact because I used to have a profile picture where I looked like an absolute kid, and now I've got one where I look maybe 20 years old on mine now. So I think that helps you a lot. Then the headline, just make sure it's not too cringe. Avoid words like leads, fast, or anything that sounds desperately salesy. So that's another quick recommendation there. In the bio section, I recommend leaning in with personality, just explaining, hey, I'm this dude, I did these couple of things before. Just add a tiny bit of personality, maybe a tiny bit of humor, something of that sort, because most bio sections are really, really cringe most of the time and really, really dry. Also, make sure that you add something into the featured section. And by the way, I'm not the perfect example of this, but in my featured section on LinkedIn, if you go into it, if we scroll to the bottom over here, you should be able to see that over here, I try to prompt you to every single thing that I want you to do. So you either want to buy the course or book a call with us or just basically buy one of our agency services. So make sure you have a similar featured section where you have the hyperlinks to let your ideal clients know how you want them to action on, working with you potentially if they're interested. And then finally, in the work experience section, make sure that it makes sense. Make sure you have some stats, numbers, and just some idea of what you've been working on in your past companies, because I think that's very underrated. So this is just the first step, right? And I'm going to walk you through from start to finish. So until you have those 5 things sorted for step 1, don't move on to step 2, because your LinkedIn profile has to look really good to start with. And also on top of that, make sure you have a nice band image, which I think is quite important as well. Now, as soon as you have all of those sorted, you need to understand how growing an audience on LinkedIn mostly works. And there are 2 main ways that you can get traffic to your LinkedIn profile, and which you can later down the line monetize. The first way is by posting content, right? This is common sense. You can click post and post videos or text posts, photos, whatever it is. Secondly, and this thing is so underrated, hardly anyone does it and hardly anyone pays as much attention to it, it's commenting on LinkedIn. And commenting has the same reach, if not higher reach, than posting. So by commenting on a big thought leader's post, you will tap into that thought leader's following, and the chances are you will appear on the feed as soon as you comment something underneath. So naturally, when your name pops up and someone can see you commenting on a big thought leader's profile, they will click on your profile and they'll go on your profile, right? That's why we need to optimize the profile in the first place. So that's just the 2 ways that we'll be growing an audience later on. Now, before you even start thinking about posting, the first thing I recommend is making a list of every single thought leader in your space on LinkedIn. This can be competitors, this can be friends, or anyone that has a LinkedIn following that matches the ICP, the ideal client profile, of the people that you want to have as your clients later down the line. So in my opinion, you should just make a list of all these LinkedIn profiles and add them to a sheet, which would look something like this. And obviously I'm a bit to OCD with this. So I have a bunch of people on the left-hand side, and over here, all I need to do is just click on this URL and it automatically loads basically the most recent post activity. So I can basically just go and comment or like the person's post. And then on a daily basis, I can just basically tick this off. Like, oh, did I engage with this person on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday? Because all of these guys on this list here, they post every single day, more or less. So that's the first goal that you would have. And that first goal is, before you start posting, make sure you have the LinkedIn profiles of all of the thought leaders in your space. Make sure you have the LinkedIn URL where you can just basically just click on it and you can see all the recent posts by the person. And that's basically the URL of, if you click on this posts, show all post section, you would see that the URL is always the LinkedIn profile URL and then recent dash activity / all. So it's always going to be this URL specifically. So that's the first thing. And if you skip this part, and 99% of you would skip this part if you even watch this video, the chances of you seeing success later down the line will be a lot slimmer, simply because you need to look at all of these guys' posts and understand who are the thought leaders. After you understand who the thought leaders are, go and create 2 free accounts with these 2 Chrome extensions. The first Chrome extension is called Taplio. The second Chrome extension is called Clio. What you can then do is, for each one of these thought leaders, so let's say I'll pick James Banks over here, I can go on his profile, and let me just go on his profile here. And on the right hand side, can you see this Taplio Chrome extension? This basically shows me the top posts by this influence. So we can see 64 likes, 2 reposts, 37 comments. This is by far their best posts. And this already tells us what posts are performing well for thought leaders in our space. So straight away, we can take some inspiration before even starting posting to understand what resonates with the audience on LinkedIn. So that's the first thing. So that's what you would use the first Chrome extension for, which is Taplio Chrome extension. The Clio Chrome extension is being upgraded now, but it basically helps you to write better LinkedIn posts, which once again I wouldn't talk about too much here. But if you go on the Clio website, which is linked here as well, it will give you a bit more information. Now, after you go to each one of these creators' posts, you can add their top 3 posts to a table. So the way you'll do that is you basically can just click on the post and it will basically copy it to a clipboard. And I recommend having something similar to this, where you have all the thought leaders and you have like the text format of all of their top posts, which you copy and paste from something like Taplio, because it will give you an idea of what posts are resonating. And this is just something you can scroll through later, because it's important. Sometimes you will have days where you can't be bothered to think of original content, and it's good to just reference, what some of these other dudes in your space have been writing about, which performed well with their audience. Now, after all of this, this is where I expect you to be. I expect you to have checked who the thought leaders in your space are, first of all. So who are the guys that just constantly talk about the topic that you talk about, that you want to talk about on LinkedIn? Secondly, look at their top 3 posts. And then more than that, also create some sort of checklist, which would look similar to this, where you can stay accountable and just tick the box every time that you comment or engage on their posts, right? And we'll talk about this in a bit of time as well. After that, think of what you will be posting about. Now, there is a lot of random crap flying around about like content pillars, content themes, and I'll talk about that for a bit of time as well. But essentially, what you never need to do is, first of all, never post ads or posts just directly pitching your service or product. So never just say, oh, hey, I've got like 2 spots left for this like private mastermind that I'm running next week. Don't do that, because that's cringe and no one really cares, and you look a bit more desperate and no one's going to engage with that because it doesn't give any value to the audience, right? So I would say that's the first thing not to do. The second thing is never use hashtags, and it's not 2012, it's not Instagram. I don't need to be telling you about this, but hashtags, as far as I understand, they do not work on LinkedIn. Once again, like if you're a LinkedIn guru, call me out on this, but I doubt if you're a LinkedIn guru that you're watching this, to be totally fair. So don't do that, and never post just for the sake of posting. Like I know a lot of dudes that post 5 days a week, and arguably, they wouldn't, like if they posted twice a week, they could provide a lot more value, because otherwise you just really annoy your audience if every single day you just post for the sake of posting, right? So don't just post for the sake of posting, just post if it's something valuable. Now, what do you actually do when it comes to thinking about what to post about? The first thing I would mention is think of how many days you think you can consistently post for a year. For instance, with me, I posted 5 times a week, so every single day, sometimes even 6 times a week. And then I ended up being burnt out 6 months, and then I quit on LinkedIn probably for about like 3 months now. And now I'm going to come back just because I think, hey, like I want to try this out again now that I know how to get my 80-20 better from LinkedIn. So after that, after you think of how many days you can do, I recommend starting with 3 days per week minimum. because if you just do one post or two posts a week, you're not going to really grow exponentially month on month, week on week, and you will, I don't think it's the same as going gym. You're not really going to get, great results unless you go 3 times or more per week. So here we are, just decided how many days per week you think you can consistently post. After you understand how many days per week you can post, I would say that you need to write a list of any trends or themes in the content that you see working for those competitor thought leaders that we listed already. So look through their content. What are the posts that are getting the most likes, the most comments? What are those posts? And just write those down. It can be like in a bullet point. You can like handwrite it for all the eye care, like completely up to you how you go about that. After that, just write 40 things that you think you can talk about. Now, as always, I've got an example in this case. So I was actually doing this exercise earlier this morning, and these are the 40 things that I believe I'm relatively qualified to talk about. So funny mistakes that almost backfired when we implement Clay as a part of my agency, how to become a go-to-market engineer, some agency processes for like acquisition, onboarding, service delivery, sales tools that fix a real headache. So like, for example, I came across this random tool called OpenMart. I just made a video about it. Like all of the life outside of work, marathon prep, like playing footy, like trying to not work on Sundays, like burning out, social, like all of this are topics that I believe I can talk about, like productivity, videos about Clay, that kind of stuff. I think every single one of you, if you try to write down 40 random things that you could just go on stage and talk about today, which, someone on LinkedIn could benefit from learning from you just need to write those down. And those will then boil down into the content themes or content pillars or whatever else you want to call it, right? After you have those 40 things that you wrote down, and after you have all of these posts from all of these thought leaders, you can just feed all of that into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to break all of this content down into content themes, right? Those content themes, you could like structure it daily, for instance. So in my case, I just fed it all the content themes from this file here and basically structured it Monday to Friday. So on Monday, I talk about agency growth and mistakes. Tuesdays, I talk about playbooks, processes, like I give away some lead magnets. Wednesdays, I talk about cold email, go-to-market engineering, Clay, like all of this random stuff that, is specific to my niche. On Thursdays, I call out like BS and some random commentary that I saw on LinkedIn, and I try to just agitate someone and get in an argument. And I'll talk about this in a bit more time as well. And then finally on Friday, I just talk about like personal life insights and like the kind of stuff that I actually enjoy doing outside of just, talking about Clay all day. So that's that. And then one thing that I think is pretty important to understand is with all of this stuff, at the very least, like from what I've learned, you want to be somewhere between the people that are extremely boring and from the people that are completely out of touch and crazy. So what I mean by that is like a crazy post, and you would have seen a lot of those on LinkedIn recently, is a post which says something like, oh, hey, this AI agent just replaced 12 SDRs. Copy this agent in 2 minutes by commenting me or whatever, right? Like, in my opinion, that post, like, it could do well, but I hate the kind of people that write these posts. So, and I don't want to be one of them because it just sounds like, first of all, it's just selling you a dream. But 99% of these AI agents, they just give you like a random, but basically I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of just explaining this, but these posts, in my opinion, are more crazy and they're out of touch with reality. Now, on the other side of that extreme is boring posts. And that's like the typical like marketing manager that gets asked to post on LinkedIn just to show that the company is active, right, on LinkedIn. You don't want to be neither of those two people. You want to be somewhere in between, and you want to be a tiny bit more authentic, I guess. So next, based on all of this, step 6, we can assume by now we thought about what we're going to be talking about in the post. It's time to organize yourself so that you can start posting fast. I would recommend making a copy of this template. I'll try to link the template down below. And essentially, it will be this entire template that I have myself, where you have your LinkedIn posts hub, where you've got like your post, like your schedule, the content type is like a video, a photo, text, GIF, carousel, whatever. And then on top of that, you have your daily comment checklist with all the people, whose profiles you check, and you can just tick that off one by one and just go through that. You have your top thought leader post inspiration with all your top 3 posts by all these random thought leaders, that in case if you are completely out of ideas, you can get some ideas from that. You have your content themes to remind yourself of some of the topics that you can talk about, right? So that's all written out here. And then finally, you can have this also like this 10-step guide that like I'm walking you through in this video. And then finally, you can also have saved posts, and saved posts are really, really important. I'm not sure if you knew about this capability, but inside of LinkedIn, you can just basically click on the 3 dots and click on save, and it will save a post for future reference. And a lot of the time I save these posts because, I'm trying to think of an idea of how I could, copy the hook or create a post similar to that or do something of that sort as well. So by now, hopefully you understand how to organize yourself as well. You can copy this template. I'll try to link it down below, so check it out. And you would add your content pillars there. You'll add your 40 topics that you can talk about, the thought leaders that you want to track across all of these, across your industry and so on. And then step 7 is basically just drafting your LinkedIn post. And the way that I will go about this is probably similar to most people on LinkedIn right now. First of all, I would go and look for any posts that match any of the content themes that I want to be posting about. I will probably copy and paste the hooks that these posts use. And if I just show you as a quick example here, let's have a look at some of the saved posts that I've got over here. There are some that will be, so this is an example of a good hook. If you haven't used NA10 yet, this video can help you get started. In my opinion, the hook just has to grab my attention. And if I'm looking to learn NA10, this is a great hook to get started. Something like this, where it's just got like 8 random names. Like I know 3 out of those 8 names. So straight away, that's like borrowed credibility. And that makes me want to click on this post because I know all of these people. I'm just curious what the person is going to say. So the hook is the most captivating part of a LinkedIn post. And I personally spend I probably spend around 30% of my time or 20% of my time when I write a LinkedIn post, just focusing on that. So I would recommend that very much as well on your side. So I would recommend just copying and pasting some of the hooks from posts that you saved before. I think that's a good idea. And obviously spend almost half of your time on the hook rather than, so on the first line of the post rather than the rest of it. And if the hook sucks, unfortunately, the post would not do too well. So that's just a part of the way that LinkedIn takes it. So spend a lot of the time on the hook, as I mentioned quite a few times now. Now, for the time being, I'm also going to focus on one type of post that gives you disproportionate amounts of attention and engagement on LinkedIn as well. It's called lead magnets. You've probably seen them before. The idea is pretty straightforward. You basically say, I spent the last 3 days creating this killer resource that's half of my company is going to be using now to automate this specific process. And then just comment the word resource and I'll send it to you, right? Like I'm sure you've seen a lot of these posts. And if you have any sort of resources that you can share with like anyone that fits your ideal client profile, I very much recommend that you consider creating those kind of resources. And I think that could be really valuable. So I'll just give you a quick example here. This is just like a random example of one of the lead magnets that I've shared before, where I say like, oh, here is how I stole Eric's personalization waterfall fund, just completely like random stuff here. And then I talk about the result that it gave me in January, over 112 leads. Then I tease them a bit and I agitate them and I say like, oh, picture this. And then I've got some like fun pointy arrows here. And then I say, wanted, comment steal, and I'll send you the entire table. And then, of course, on top of that, a lot of the time when you have the call to action here, make sure that it also agitates them with a word. So don't make it like a boring word like comment red or something. Just make it some absurd word like steal or something like that to get a bit more attention. And then basically just mention that a couple of times so that, you really get comments flowing in. And in this case, one post like this just got 24,000 people to look at this post because you can see 373 comments, right? Once again, there is a bit of a science to it as well, and I'll talk about that in a bit of time. But essentially, always, if I were you, just start thinking, what's a super valuable resource that took you a lot of time to create that can benefit your ideal clients? Create a hook around that resource. Create a visual that shows that the resource exists and how complex and long it is. So in this case, I've got like this GIF video thing just walking you through like 20 steps inside of Clay, which took me like an entire Sunday to build. And that's like 100% truthful. I genuinely spent like I think it was either Saturday or Sunday just building that Clay table for this giveaway and to use in-house as well. It can be a video, it can be a photo or a scrolling GIF. You need to blur out some stuff to create curiosity and intrigue. That's perfect for those kind of lead magnet posts. And give a simple CTA asking the reader to comment the word and then DM each lead with a resource. And this is where you can genuinely start monetizing your posts, right? And I think that most likely the lead magnet posts are the posts that are going to give you the most direct correlation between the post and any sort of revenue that you or your agency or whatever generate. Because essentially what you'll be doing is saying, oh, hey, thanks for commenting. And then you'll be saying something like this, where you say, here's the resource. By the way, how is your... And then you can open up a conversation. So in this case, I could say, oh, hey, here's the resource on how we can personalize, cold emails. By the way, how are your cold emails going? And this is when you can get like a virtual assistant or an executive or like an EA, VA, whatever you want to call it. Just basically someone to manage your LinkedIn inbox, share these resources and open up a bunch of these conversations. Because every time when you share a resource, someone will say thank you and they will answer that question. And when they answer that question, they don't realize that they're entering your sales funnel. And that's the point at which later down the line, you can nurture them, you can prompt them to another resource, then another resource, and then for a meeting, and then eventually you can hopefully close them one day as well, right? So that's the idea. Now, moving on. I would recommend not overdoing lead magnets. I used to be posting like 1 or 2 lead magnets a week, and that just gets out of hand because first of all, you don't have enough time to create and maintain good lead magnets and to distribute them. And secondly, it's just an absolute mess and you lose credibility from the people around you. So I would very much recommend that you maximum do 1 lead magnet post every 2 weeks. Be careful because each lead magnet post needs to target your ideal client profile, and the lead magnet should be symptomatic of the person needing your service. So let me give you an example of a bad lead magnet for me. So I created this lead magnet for where I basically talked about someone's sales funnel. And obviously I basically said, hey, I stole this funnel. You booked me this number of calls. Now I'm giving it away for free. Comment yes to get it. And I got 773 comments, right? So that's 40,000 people looking at this post just from one post. But here is the thing. You got me 0 results. You got me no agency clients, no course sign up, nothing. It was the most depressing thing ever. Just a waste of a post. Now, let me give you an example of a good lead magnet in contrast to that. And I remember this day because my Slack channel that gets the notifications of course sales absolutely blew up. And this was three months. So here I said, if you run paid ads or sell ads related services, you need to try this in Clay. And basically it was just teasing people about this Clay table, this like lead generation workflow that helps to sell Google Ads related services. So anyone that sells like Google Ads or anything of that sort, I build them a Clay table. They can help that sell, like find out the ads that a company is running and so on. And basically this one, there were only 61 likes and 122 comments, which is a lot less. It got like 5% of the engagement of the previous post, which is 5,000 impressions only. But I remember there were transactions that were taking place for my course because a lot of people, you can see over here, it says taught inside unlock Clay, right? So once again, the reason that this post was better is because it's more symptomatic of someone needing a service or a product that I was selling compared to this other resource, which was just something to do with sales funnels. And we don't build sales funnels. Even if every person in the world downloaded that, there is no way that I could make money from it, right? So that's exactly why every single one of the lead magnets that you create needs to either naturally upsell into your paid service, or it has to be symptomatic of the prospect needing your service at some point later. If not, don't bother creating it. Let's talk briefly about LinkedIn accountability and some of the tips that I have for you. In my opinion, every day you should be opening up your LinkedIn Thought Leaders tab and commenting on their recent posts. In an ideal world, if you can't do that every day, then go get a virtual assistant or someone of that sort that can do it for you. Because one day, all of these thought leaders will go and ask their virtual assistant to commenting back on your posts, right? And if not, their audience will still see your comments on their feeds, meaning that even if you just comment on their posts and they don't comment back on yours, you will still appear on top of, you will tap into their audience because their audience will see your name pop up in the comment section. Now, on top of that, another thing that's a must-have to accelerate and to get your impressions up quite a lot is to go inside of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Once again, you don't need a paid LinkedIn Sales Navigator account. There are a bunch of people that can help you like scrape the lists from Sales Navigator and so on. But basically, you would need to filter for your ideal client profile inside of Sales Navigator. For example, let's say it's like founders in, I don't know, like I don't want to do it now, but you get the idea. Like you can just build it like founders in North America. Right? Obviously, we'll have to dive into the industry specifics and so on, but you can add a bunch of these people into LinkedIn automation, whereby automatically you connect with 20 people every single day. And I'll make sure to link a video above right now showing you how you can do that kind of automation using Hayread. So essentially, all you would do is you would send a connection request automatically to all of those people. And since those people already will then start following you, they will start seeing your posts pop up on there. So if you genuinely provide valuable content, or at the very least like half interesting content, you will boost your visibility amongst your ideal client profile, and you'll have more people that you can potentially then sell to because they're already inside of your network, they're exposed to your posts and so on. Another thing, once again, like I don't want to sound like an absolute guru here, but I would not be scared to post like contrarian thoughts. And when I say contrarian thoughts, I just mean there are a lot of people on LinkedIn that are really toxic, in my opinion, and sometimes like I am one of them. So yeah, apologies. But I do like to challenge people on like absolute bullshit when I see. So a lot of the time, like when someone says, "Oh, this lead generation strategy generated $34 million in 2 nights," or whatever, that's when I drop into their comment section. I'm like, "Hey, like you're full of crap. Like show me any sort of revenue attribution for this post. Like, it's impossible what you said in hook or whatever just to capture the person's attention." So I think a lot of the time you can comment on people's posts and call them out if the posts are completely crazy and like completely unrealistic. And don't be scared to just post your own thoughts, which are different to what a lot of other experts are saying, assuming you've got, good evidence to back you up as well. I would recommend also joining 1 or 2 LinkedIn pods. And for context, LinkedIn pods are places where you just drop a link to your post and then people will just like your post and comment on it in return for you then reciprocating and, liking and commenting on their post. That way you will tap into each other's audience. That's really common. If you're not inside of a LinkedIn, go ask your friends, go ask some other thought leaders, maybe, some other people that post on LinkedIn. I guarantee you they'll have like a random LinkedIn pod somewhere. And when you do share your posts, so for example, I used to ask my girlfriend a lot to like my post on LinkedIn when I was getting like 2 or 3 likes. And I used to send her this entire link, right? Never do, because basically this part, which I highlighted in bold, the UTM source tells LinkedIn that you asked the person to basically like, because it just shows that this was shared by me, right? So always delete this part. And basically, if you send it something like this, then all of a sudden LinkedIn does not know that you asked, the person to basically like this. So always cut out the UTM part of the post and of the post link. And so on top of that, some final points. First of all, think of partners up front. What tools, what thought leaders, who are your friends or other people with complementary followings that potentially later down the line you want to partner with? Make sure to start commenting on their posts, because when you do get quite popular, when you get like more than 20,000 impressions per month, that's when all of these partnerships and all of these like inbound leads and so on will come flying in. So that's when you can capitalize on this partners ecosystem that you build. So one of my regrets right now is that I haven't really been engaging with a lot of these partners. That's why it took me 4 months, 5 months to get messages from them, as opposed to if I commented from day one, I probably would have gone all of the sales to for free a lot earlier. So that's that. And then make sure to mention people in posts occasionally, as this will mean that they will come. Okay, so this is really important, because whenever you do a LinkedIn post, if you tag a bunch of people and say something like, oh, this was inspired by this thought leader and this thought leader, first of all, it appears on that thought leader's LinkedIn. And secondly, they might even comment on it and say, oh, thanks for the shout out, right? So that will drive up the engagement of your post. So always tag people like random, well, not random, but people from your industry, from your niche, because I think that could drive up the engagement on your post. And then make sure to mention them in posts. Make sure to also check out some stuff to do with shit commenting. I'm not sure if you've heard about the concept before, but it's quite self-explanatory. Sometimes I see posts, and this was just a post I randomly picked today, so it's not like a personal attack on Gnome here, but it was just something that I noticed. Like, there are so many of these posts where it's like, oh, you can train your AI to pitch for you, or something like that, and it's so abstract, in my opinion at least. So, and it always mentions like, oh, get a free account, like use my affiliate link, that kind of thing. And for me, this is cringe, and I hate sponsored posts. So I would personally go and, I wouldn't attack in the comment section, but I will go in the comment section and say like, why are we just doing like sponsored posts so blatantly, obviously on LinkedIn, right? On top of that, funny commenting, that's something, once again, like it's subjective. If you have a sense of humor, it could be quite useful. Like in this case, I remember this team posted their 7-employee organizational chart, and I said like solid 7-a-side squad. I'm not sure you can see, but there was 7 likes on that comment. And it's just, once again, another kind of thing that you could do, I guess. Another thing worth noting with LinkedIn posts is recently the LinkedIn algorithm, for whatever reason, pushes up a lot of the video posts. So I would very much recommend just doing a bunch of video posts throughout, because the chances are you'll be seen by more people. Coming back to a previous thing that I mentioned about borrowed credibility, I think it's very important to just tag some people who inspire you or give you ideas for your content, because a lot of the time, as I mentioned already a few times, they'll be replying and commenting on your feed, which will increase the visibility of your posts. And now let's talk about just goals and accountability, which is step 9 in this entire process. And essentially, I would just recommend, as I mentioned, posting 3 to 5 times a week. After 30 days, look at the impressions on your Taplio Chrome extension. So once again, if I just go quickly on my LinkedIn profile, and this is just right now because I haven't been posting on LinkedIn at all for the last 2-3 months, because I don't want to just get distracted too much with LinkedIn, although I am coming back to posting now. If you click on analytics, it shows you 0 impressions, 0 engagements, still quite a lot of profile views, and still quite a few followers. So that's that. And I'd say just look at your impressions once a month on Taplio, and just if they've gone down drastically and you're still posting, clearly you're doing something wrong. And you can also just click on some of your posts and you would see how many impressions the post got as well. So that's another good metric. So hopefully this loads at some point, and you can see this random post got 4,000 views, for example. Right, so this just to give you an example of the kind of metric that I would look for. Scroll down to each post and see which post got the most impressions. That's quite important as well during the month, so you can double down on the right content. If you want more impressions, consider spending time on better hooks and more lead magnet posts, because as I mentioned, these two things are probably the easiest things to get you more impressions. And then as far as milestones go, I think it's nice to hit 10,000 impressions. It's probably nice to hit 20,000 impressions, and then as soon as you hit like 50k impressions a month or so, that's when you can predictably understand like what you need to do in order to get a bunch of people to look at your content, depending on how niche your industry or whatever is. But still, I'd say the first milestone should be, hey, I want to hit 10k impressions. You can probably do that within a month or two. 20k impressions will probably be a month or two, and then assuming exponential growth within 3 months or so, I think it's realistic to hit 50k impressions or so. And then just one other thing on this, I think on Instagram, for example, the theme is very much like, hey, how do I get, like, people on Instagram would try to look rich. Similarly, on people on LinkedIn try to look smart. That means that the kind of authenticity that is lacking on LinkedIn is something that you can definitely leverage to your advantage. And that's why I think just making sure that you don't put long words like highlights into your random LinkedIn post goes a long way, and just show not just the highs, but also the lows behind whatever work you do, right? So be a bit more humane, be a bit more authentic. And I'll just give you a couple of examples of just like some random posts that I did, just to give you an idea of like what I talk about when I mention authenticity. Once again, hopefully, this teaches you a thing or two here. Let me just open up a couple of posts. So this post, for example, for the last 2 months, I went through an identity crisis, and here is what I learned. A lot of this stuff is just like talking about like, oh, hey, this is like how I messed up. I was overworked, underpaid, like questioning the point of growing an agency, blah, blah, blah. And then I talk about like some of these negatives. And then, of course, I end up talking about how I overcame some of these challenges, right? But I think that's quite good. Also, same thing here, like this is another example of a post where I just say this month, and I mentioned a bunch of bad stuff that happened or a bunch of good stuff that happened. But it's important to not just mention the good stuff, but the bad stuff as well. And then in this case, I just grill people that applied for this open role because I wasn't too impressed with the applications overall. So once again, I think that's just showing your humane side, not just going after just chasing after all the highs and showing that. One final thing, and I hate talking about monetization, but I'm going to try talking about this briefly. In my opinion, the best benefit of posting consistently on LinkedIn is getting a bunch of inbound messages. So a lot of the time you'll get messages like, hey, I want to work with you. I want to try out your products or your service. I want to get like a subscription, whatever it is that you pitch them. Like people reach out to you with a connection request saying, hey, I want, this cool thing from you. To make those people easier to convert, we talked about this, but make sure that your featured section has a call to action where it redirects them to your website, to your Calendly, to whatever you want them to do. And also, on top of that, on every single one of your LinkedIn posts, I would say the only subtle way or relatively subtle way that you can remind the people of your service or product is to have a PS line. So, for example, in every single one of my posts, I always put a pretty witty PS line where it says like, hey, if you like such tutorials, consider looking at my course as it teaches you everything that I know about all of this stuff. This is just an example. You can have a similar PS. It's completely up to you, just pitching your product, your service or something of that sort. But it has to be like a really subtle mention, just saying like, PS, if you want to shortcut this learning journey, go check that out, right? And then I'm just going to talk about what probably not to do. And this is just, once again, from my personal experience. Do not start doing sponsored posts of random tools or products which offer you a specific set of money per post. A lot of people do sell out on LinkedIn and get, a bunch of impressions every single month. And then they just use like a bunch of bots, I guess, to just like posts and to comment on posts and boost their engagement and so on. And then they make a living just basically recycling those crappy posts and templates for sponsored posts. I would not recommend it. I did sponsored posts for, I believe, like 2 companies before, and both were extremely underpriced. Like that was when I had over 50,000 impressions per month. I charged $150 per post. I quit after doing 2 posts because, in my opinion, it was just like it was a complete waste of time because it takes you like an hour to draft a post and to get approval by this company, and then you're basically being paid $150 for 1 hour of your time. So if you do sell out, at the very least, sell out for a decent price, like $500 above, I assume, in most cases. But yeah, the benefit is you can get a lot of tools, you can get a lot of software, you can get a lot of otherwise paid services. You can get them for free if you just have a decent LinkedIn following, because people just message you and say, oh, hey, like, do you want to try this out? Like, I'd love to hear your honest review so I can put it in a testimonial or whatever, right? So that's like a really good barter agreement. And a lot of the time, especially with like software providers, a lot of them would give you a bunch of tools for free, especially like a lot of the mainstream providers, which you never would have thought give you all of that for free. Otherwise, they would, you may not even imagine some of these guys that I'm talking about here that for whatever reason would give you all of this for free. Anyways, if you liked this video, then consider subscribing to the channel. I completely forgot that it's a YouTube video anyways. I'll record it like a typical Loom. So yeah, and I'll see you maybe in the next videos. So yeah, go check out some of the other videos on the channel as well. And in the meantime, if you want to get this template, I'll try to link it down below. So go grab it, and the link will be down in the description before I get absolutely sunburnt. So yeah, if you have any questions, just drop a comment down below and I'll make sure to answer that as well. See you in the next video.